the slate. We're live. Bang. We got to we got to work on some animation for this, but that's my best attempt at doing that for us. Yes, this is the slate. Welcome in, everybody. Brendan Glasheen, Jeff Ulrich is in the house today. Again, Jeff's been here all week. This guy putting in yeoman's work. And Matt LaMarca is here, his second stop of the week. We are a show that airs until about 6 o'clock Eastern time. We take you through the afternoon. It's a good time of week to talk NFL. It's really a great time, anytime, any day, any hour. We got some news updates to share as it pertains to guys that are questionable. Those injury reports, they get updated as the day goes on. But we will cover everything sportsbook, contest related. We got the big Millie Maker up right now as well over on our screen share. So we will discuss everything as it pertains to NFL Week 2, line movement. There's been a little movement in the last couple hours in the Seattle 49ers game because one of the key players in that game might be playing. But the long and short of it is, if you have questions, comments, concerns, we will take them on the YouTube chat as well as Twitch. And and if you're on Twitter, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out. So, of course, all the lines we use are from the DraftKings Sportsbook. We also have the salaries from DraftKings.com. So, Jeff, since you've been here all week and everyone's probably sick of your takes, let's go to LaMarca first because
good idea. I have to sneeze too. So
great, perfect. So mute your mic and do what you need to do. Wipe your nose. And LaMarca,
gross,
man. What's the latest temperature in the LaMarca brain as it pertains to this week in the National Football League?
Well, first, I'm just happy to be spending some time with Jeff Ulrich. Haven't seen the guy in, I don't know, probably more than a year at this point. So always good to see my friend from up north.
Absolutely.
But
it's been a year. It's been a year since you've worked together on a stream.
Yeah, I don't do the sweat.
Yeah.
You know, I don't do the sweat. I have too much going on in the morning. So it's been a long time. Probably since the Madden days.
You sound like Ed Lowe, but continue. Sorry, that was mean. Go ahead.
For me, week 2 is always one of my favorite weeks of the year. I call it overreaction week. I think we're seeing, a bunch of that already with some of these lines. A lot of like tight spreads. There are a couple big ones out there, but for the most part, we're looking at a lot of games that are, within a touchdown. And I think it's going to be a fun week. I think that there are some good spots to zig when the public is zagging and so on and so forth.
Love it. I think it makes sense. Yeah, a lot of big spreads. Even for some teams that did not look great in week 1. So that might be the bookmakers too, trying not to overreact. Like we're gonna make Green Bay a 10-point favorite. We're gonna make Denver, who did not look great, and their coach kind of got exposed in his first head coaching gig. You're going to be a 10-point favorite in your home opener. And you'll find that trend too. These teams opening up their first home game for a lot of these teams, that reflects that. And then the other one, of course, is San Francisco playing Seattle. Yeah, you're 9.5-point favorite. You're at home against Seattle. We think Seattle's going to come back down to earth, and your team's going to figure it out this week. Good call.
And that's my favorite of those big favorites. I think that
Who's that? San Fran?
San Fran. I think the general perception right now is like, oh, the 49ers, they're overvalued. Trey Lance isn't any good. And on the other side, maybe, Seattle is going to be friskier than expected this year. Geno Smith is 9-0 against the spread in his last 9 games. So
crazy.
I think you look at the public betting, 50% of the bets are landing on Seattle. People kind of believe in that narrative, but I'm still very bullish on the Niners from a talent perspective, right? I mean, outside of quarterback, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL. They'll be better this week with George Kittle. The field conditions last week in Chicago were just an absolute disaster. You talk about a guy like Trey Lance who makes his living with his legs. You want him to be on an optimal surface. So I think that this is a great bounce back spot for him. And then Seattle, they definitely should not have won that Broncos game. You look at the yardage stats. Seattle got pretty thoroughly dominated in that department. Denver had 2 fumbles essentially in the end zone this last week. So I think it's a great time to just sell high on the Seahawks, buy low on the 49ers. I think that one could get ugly.
If there are markets out there too to take Seattle as the team that wins the fewest games this season, I still think that might be a look. Don't consider week 1 to be everything you look at. Go ahead, Jeff.
I probably wouldn't do that just because I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be in enough of these games like this when they just catch the other teams off guard. Like I think they're actually going to do good against good competition. But
did you feel that way before?
They're also going to like lose to like the Giants or something, like.
Okay. Did you feel that way before?
They've got a good home field too, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt that way before as well. Like I wasn't a guy who was like, oh, go and bet like the Seahawks to get the number 1 overall pick. My team, and the other thing is, I don't even think they're the worst team in that division.
I know you said this. The Cardinals,
are terrible. Like if Kyler Murray gets injured, that team go out and smash worst record, first overall pick. Absolutely, I might do it now, or maybe after next week or something. But yeah. So I agree with pretty much everything LaMarcus said. I actually think that all 3 of the big favorites, Denver, Green Bay, and the 49ers, are worth betting. We just talked about how dominant Denver was. I like them. I mean, I watched that Texans game. The Texans were like the Seahawks. They were scrappy. They caught the Colts off guard. I don't think the Colts are a good team, but we'll get to that in a sec. The last about 8 possessions of Davis Mills and the Texans, punts, turnovers. Denver averaged 5.5 yards per carry with their running backs. Like, I think this one will just be domination. I think the Texans will score like 7 points or something. And I think that this is going to cover. I think that, again, if we had a regular week 1, or if this was like week 7, you'd probably see Denver pushing to like maybe even 2 touchdowns here. And that's the overreaction. Like you say, oh, well, it's 10 points. There's no overreaction here. That's a massive spread. They're giving Denver too much credit. When we get to the normalization week 7, I think you'll see that these 2 teams this is actually an underreaction. And again, just like the 49er game, there's a lot of money pouring in on the Texans. Everyone's like, well, they paid off week 1. They're scrappy. They're going to do it again. They were bad after like the third quarter. They could not move the ball. I don't trust it at all.
Okay. Very good. Broncos at home in September have been very good historically. They've won 17 straight home games in September with a money line of -200 or greater. How about that for a stat? So
okay.
Here we go.
Is that dating back to the John Elway days or
Brock Osweiler?
Probably. Brock Osweiler. Tebow. Yeah. They typically get their act together. But yeah, and they've got legitimate expectations, as we know. So all right, so yeah, we're discussing some big favorites here early. So LaMarca, to clarify, you like the Niners. You don't like the Seahawks on the number. You like the Niners.
I like the Niners. I'm laying the points with the Niners. I agree with Jeff. I'm laying the points with Denver. The one I'm a little skeptical of is the Packers, just because.
Just going to go there. Okay.
The Packers really looked atrocious offensively. And, maybe they get Alan Lazard back this week, but if Alan Lazard is your savior, your year is not going to turn out the way that you want it.
And everyone's on Justin Fields for playing bad, but he's got the same excuse Trey Lance does, right? Like, I mean, the poor field, like that offense could look a little bit better in week 2 too. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not big on the Bears, but I have more worries. The Packers have a legitimate worry in that they're not going to be able to push the ball down the field this year. I don't really have any of those worries with, I mean, yeah, I guess you could make this. No, you really can't with the 49ers. I mean, I think that the Packers are definitely, that's probably one I'd lay off. They are, I'll say this, LaFleur's record covering and the Packers record covering in these spots is amazing. So I don't think it's like bad to take the Packers side, but I would rank them 3rd out of those big favorites as well, probably this week.
So the number, the record you're talking about, it's similar to Rodgers too. Aaron Rodgers is 8-1 straight up, 9-0 against the spread against the Bears after a loss. It all sets up really well for all these teams that were expected to win. They're or not expected to win because like the Rams Bills game was a coin flip, but the Rams are now home to Atlanta. It's a nice little landing spot after a loss. But you got that game. You've got Denver after the loss, as we just discussed. Even San Francisco, their first 2. We talked about their first 2 quite a bit before the season started. But with Green Bay, it's true. What worries me is you don't have Adams. Like Adams was that safety valve Now, the Minnesota game makes sense because if you look back at Minnesota and Green Bay historically, Adams has had monster games against the Vikings. Even in games that Kirk Cousins and the Vikings cover, you can come out of it and say, okay, Green Bay, they put up a fight. And I know it's Aaron Rodgers week 1, as we saw last year, but it's just a different outfit. And I think Lamarca hit the nail on the head. If we're relying on Allen Lazard to be the savior in that receiving core, then yeah, there could be some problems. But it's weird. So knowing all those trends, why is the line only 10? That's what I would argue back. Like, well, shouldn't it be more then? If Vegas knows the trend, then why is it only 10? Are they giving Chicago credit, respect for winning week 1? I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing you have to decide, right? Like, is the Packers, are they underrated here? I mean, I think that there's a good chance that, like, again, I don't really have a problem with betting all the big favorites this week. Because how good LaFleur is and how good Green Bay after a loss too. Like 6-2 ATS has lost last year. Here's a couple other stats. 6-1 ATS since 2020 after a loss. 12-6 ATS as home favorites since 2020. Went 6-2 last year as a home favorite last year ATS. Like that's again, like and -10. You say, well, I mean, before the season projected, the Packers were like one of the Super Bowl favorites, and the Bears were like pushing for the last team in the league. So just like the other games, there's realistic to say this could be 14 points mid-season. But I think with week 1, there's more questions to say this line could also just be like what it is and right on, because the Packers may have real issues that they're not going to figure out until like maybe the end of the year or something with their receiver core.
When they played each other last year in December, recall that it was a really weird game. Chicago got out to a big lead, and the Packers still eventually got there. They won 45-30, but that game did not start well if you backed Green Bay. It was a very odd game, if you recall. But their receiving game, Adams had 10 catches for 121 and 2 touchdowns in that game.
Adams,
freaking and then Allen Lazard 6 for 75 and a score. After that, you're like, who is the next best receiver? Mercedes Lewis, Josiah DeGuara.
Rodgers has ever played with. Although I guess that's changed now with Sammy Watkins in tow. But
I think Tunyon's a good player. Like I think he likes Tunyon. He's always done a good job elevating the tight end. And Tunyon was hurt for most of last year, but I mean, it's hard to look at that Green Bay team.
Yeah, like Lamarca said, if Robert Tunyon is your big ace in the hole, I mean,
yeah, it's probably a stay away spot.
I think it's legitimate to have questions about Green Bay. I don't think I don't think they're bad. I think they've got a really good defense. I think they are going to be able to run the ball, but I think it's legitimate to say at this point, 10 points is fair for Green Bay. Like that's fair. I think that there's more reason to think that the Broncos and 49ers, like we're just overreacting, especially with the teams they're taking on. So I don't know.
Okay. What about some of the closer lines? Jeff, you mentioned earlier in the week that you might take the cheese on Miami +3.5, slight juice over on the DraftKings Sportsbook, taking on Baltimore at 1:00. Some good 1:00 games, I think. Yeah. New England, Pittsburgh could be sloppy, but folks around here, they can't figure this game out. They think the public's on New England, sharps are on Pittsburgh. And then, of course, Tampa, New Orleans, the latest on that game that we should share. Tom Brady's receivers, with the exception of Chris Godwin, they were back at practice. For Tampa, also Donovan Smith was out, missing practice. That O-line's been decimated by injuries in this preseason and now early in the regular season. But there's also the threat of Alvin Kamara not playing in this game. Alvin Kamara did not practice today. He did not practice now for the last 2 days, and he is questionable. So those what are some of the early games that have some closer lines, that 2.5 number or 3.5?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Miami. Mike McDaniel, pretty solid debut. Ravens already dealing with some injuries in the secondary. I definitely don't think that their wide receivers are going to keep up this kind of pace, especially against Miami with good lockdown, with good corners. I think Miami is another team. Like you look at their spread record over the last 10 games, it's just like they're amazing. I mean, I have no reason to think like we're getting 3.5 years, good number, that we should feel this. I think Miami's also a good teaser target, like a 7-pointer or something like that. I just think that they're passing more. They pass more on first down week 1. They didn't play at a super fast pace. They've got a solid defense, and the Ravens already looking like a little bit banged up. And like, I mean, what did the Ravens really do to improve? I mean, Lamar is Lamar. That's fine. But like the Ravens outside of that, like they played the Jets. They didn't do much. I think the Dolphins had a bit of a statement.
They played the Jets.
Yeah.
And they only had 274 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
So I'm with Jeff here. I like the Dolphins.
Yeah.
We like the Dolphins. Very good. Okay.
I mean, one game that I'm becoming more and more interested in, and I think it's more of an overplay for the total, but it's the Panthers. And I like the Panthers side here. I'd probably even just target them on the money line. Panthers over the Giants. Like, I think the Giants ran extremely well to win that game week 1. They allowed a big game passing to Ryan Tannehill. I like the pace that the Panthers played with for the over. You've got playmakers on both sides. You've got 2 weaker defenses that were allowing explosive plays. I think 43.5 is really low for this game. And I also, like I said, I like the Panthers side slightly, not like huge thing, but I just feel like people are overreacting to the Giants. I mean, like they didn't look that good. Saquon looked good, great, but like the rest of the team wasn't that good. So I kind of like the Panthers, and I definitely like the over in that game.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Giants are another team, just tons of injuries at the receiver position. Wan'Dale Robinson out. Kadarius Toney questionable. Kenny Galladay dust. Like Richie James is going to be another guy that it's going to be another Richie James week for the Giants. So
yeah,
I think that's a pretty good call for Jeff. I fought with Meiselman about the Colts line.
Yep.
They were -4 on Tuesday.
-4, yeah.
What are they now? Oh, 3. Oh, okay.
-3. Everybody loves Jacksonville in this game. The Sharps love the Jaguars. Even the public likes the Jaguars. And I just don't understand it. They lost to a Guardians team that we don't think is any good. I didn't think Trevor Lawrence played particularly well.
Just call the Commanders the Guardians.
I've been doing that all year.
You know what?
That's amazing.
They do sound the same, Commanders and Guardians.
Well, no, they're the same kind of thing. They're like, that's
right.
You're a Guardian, Commander.
We will protect.
So that's right. Yeah.
Honestly, I'd prefer to just keep
the over too as a play. I don't. And this is why I started to think about this game. Shaq Leonard's out again, and I don't think their secondary is that good. So if anything, maybe look towards the over here, or like an over on the team totals. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not going to do it with the Jags. I'm like Marco. Like why would this be the team that you want to trust out of like the 12 games we have to choose from?
Alec Pierce is also out. Buckner is questionable. DeForest Buckner of the Colts. Those are some things to keep in mind. And yeah, all the things you say to compliment or basically to rag on the Colts. Yeah, take the Texans in the touchdown, or take the Texans if you bet the game last week early at 8.5, whatever you were getting with Houston. But now we can start talking about the positives on the Colts, because the Jaguars were not great against the Commanders. The other note, I was going to share something else, and it just slipped my mind. What the hell was it? Anyway, it'll come back to me. But yeah. Oh, and the other thing, I know every week's important. There's urgency every week. I know. But if you're Indy, these are your first 2 division games in 2 weeks. You can't start with a tie and a loss. For Jacksonville, it's not as urgent because you're playing your first division game. For the Colts, this is your second one. And I'm just telling you what all the coaches say every week. Hey, it's a divisional game. It's a first step, win our division. And the Colts have aspirations here. They can't afford to start 0-1-1 to their season. So yeah, it's a big. I think Indy's going to get up for the game. And I know, like, Carson Wentz sucked last year in this game, but Carson Wentz isn't here anymore. We don't have to worry about him. And Carson Wentz just beat the Jaguars. Keep that in mind too. What else do we like? Anything else on the board that we want to discuss?
Really quickly, I'll just throw out a couple of underdogs that I like this week.
Cool.
I like the Jets +6.5.
Ooh.
The Browns, while they won last week, I didn't think
Another
anything they did was particularly impressive. Jacoby Brissett just was meh. They ran the ball. They always run the ball well. And the Jets defense, despite the fact that they lost by 15 points, they more than held their own, I thought, against Baltimore. So we're going to need to score 9 points this week, Mr. Flacco. But I think the Jets can cover this spread. I'd love it if it got to 7. But I think that the Jets are a good side here. And then same goes to the Cowboys on Sunday afternoon.
Do not forget what Cooper Rush did on Sunday Night Football last year against the Vikings. He delivered. Anyway,
I don't care about that.
Oh,
what I care about is that this spread was -2 Cowboys on the look ahead line, and it is now +7.
Yeah.
That is a 9-point drop. There is no quarterback in football 9 points, and certainly Dak Prescott is not worth 9 points. Maybe he's worth 5, maybe he's worth 6, but we're getting some value here. We're getting some key numbers, and again, Cincinnati was not good in week 1. Their improved offensive line struggled mightily against Pittsburgh. And Dallas has a pretty darn good pass rush of their own.
Yeah.
You know, Trevor Lawrence and Micah Parsons getting after the quarterback. So I think the Cowboys can keep this one within the number.
That is a great way of looking at it. And I'm glad you had the look ahead line ready. This was at 8. I saw some 8s earlier in the week as well. Some Cowboys +8. So, and looking at that's what I was going to say before. All the money, Edlow put the splits up earlier today. All the money coming in on the Colts -4, but it has moved to 3, which should probably help you bet the Colts more. And then in this game too, Cincinnati, 85% of the bet of the money, 84% of the bets coming in on the Bengals, -7, Jeff.
Yeah. Of those 2 games, I would feel better about the Cowboys. It's a road game. Like, I mean, Dak Prescott didn't look good when he was playing. And I mean, like, there's legit argument. Like, I'm not saying Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott, but he was dealing with ankle injury. Like the Cowboys could just go out and be just slightly better with Cooper Rush for a game. Like, it's not outlandish to think that Bengals.
That's a little outlandish. That's a little outlandish
for a game.
Dude, he played well against the Vikings last year in that game. He got thrown in.
The big difference is that their offensive line was just completely overmatched by the Buccaneers. That shouldn't be as big of a problem against the Bengals.
I think one of the best things you brought up is like their defense, right? I mean, they were good in the red zone against Brady. They held Brady to 1 touchdown. It's not like the Bengals were super efficient last week, turning the ball over alone. Like they just couldn't convert in the red zone. So like we could just, I think this could just be like a close game. Maybe it's like 20-17. Maybe it even turns into like a bit of a shootout, but I don't know. I don't want to trust. I just don't want to trust the Bengals to cover a touchdown. Like maybe it's 6.5. That maybe you could argue that's where the line should be, but even 6.5 kind of feels big. Like it kind of feels like it should be around 4.5, maybe 5.5 with the Cooper Rush factor. But once you get over 6, it feels like that's an overreaction, and especially at 7. Yeah, I think you'll see like the sharp money start to come in on Dallas, and this will probably fall back below 7 before kickoff. It's just too much of a move. Like, I mean, I like Joe Burrow, but like, is this like he potentially has rust, didn't practice that much in the preseason because of the appendix. There's stuff going on both sides. So that one's interesting. The Jets, I don't know, man. Robert Saleh's going out here running his mouth. This could just turn into a disaster. I get the idea of targeting like Brissett on the other side, but I also have respect for Stefanski. I think that's the one thing people are overlooking about the Browns. Like, they're a pretty well-coached team when it comes down to it. So that one I'm going to stay away from. I'm not going to trust the Browns either. I'm not going to like go on the other side against LaMarco, but I definitely like the Cowboys call.
Do the Jets play the Lions this year? If so, I say we cancel the football game and we just have Robert Saleh versus Dan Campbell in the octagon. Winner gets a win for their team.
The loser should get relegated in that game as well. I mean, yeah.
Cooper Rush was not that bad last year, and he had a week to prepare. Similar spot. He knew he was going to come in, and he threw for 325 against that Vikings team. Which,
all right, we get it. You like Cooper Rush.
No, I'm trying to backing up your points. I don't like this. Well, it's time to go anyway. And by the way,
time to go. We got the Rainmakers coming up. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, let me do what I'm supposed to do. Okay.
Ray Lance is a
WNBA. Hey,
watch it. Update, by the way, on Justin Herbert. Fracture in his to his rib cartilage, and he's day to day. Brandon Staley.
Oh, rib cartilage.
Update.
Okay, yeah.
Yep,
That guy is a hero. That guy is a backdoor cover hero. 2 4th down conversions with a cracked rib.
Well,
get yourself some ice, Mr. Herbert.
And shout out to Staley for putting his quarterbacks
tickets for us.
Shout out to Staley for putting his quarterback's career on the line when he could. When most coaches just kick the field goal there and like, hey, yeah, and then we'll get the onside kick. But I don't know. That's NFL betting at its best, right there.
All right, you guys can now go watch the replay on NFL Network. We need to go. The Rainmaker Show coming up at 6. You all have a great weekend. Best of luck with your lineups, your bets, your lives. Enjoy yourselves. For Lamarca, Jeff, Eamon, and Daniel, Brendan Glasheen saying so long. We'll catch you Monday with the sweat. Oh, the Sunday sweat. Duh. Sunday sweat at 11 a.m. Right?
Yes.
11 a.m. Great.